everybody, welcome back to your Resident Evil channel. Alright you guys, I am very excited to be doing this review for you guys. Season 2, Selena the Series. Now some of you who watched either my first video or season 1, you guys may or may not remember, but I did vow. I was like, I will not be watching season 2. I remember that. I don't remember how many times I said it, but I'm pretty sure I did like make a point of saying I will not be watching season 2. Anyways, I did end up watching season 2, thanks to TikTok. We gotta love TikTok. TikTok made me do it. Because literally, they kept showing Suzette and how Ricky ended up writing "No me queda más." And as I'm watching that, I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, now I have to see it. I'm like, and I told myself, I was like, I will only watch until I get to that point. Once that point comes, I will stop watching and I'm done with the show. I was not expecting the next step to happen, which I'm like, season 2 got so much better. It really did. It really, like, I feel like it addressed a lot of my concerns. I know not personally, okay, I get it, but I know I'm not the only one who had these concerns. So I was pleasantly surprised at season 2. Now, to kick off kind of how the series is going to go, I'm going to talk about a little bit of what I'm still upset about from the whole series as a whole so far, and then how awesome season 2 was, like what are the things I think they did a great job on, and then finally my biggest fear for the future, because I do have a big fear and I think we all should. All right, so my biggest critique about the whole series is the fact that still Chris has not had input in the show, and you can feel it. I'm like, there are certain moments, interactions that I'm like, there's something missing, and it's a point of view. It's both their point of views at the end of the day, because I'm like, at the end of the day, who's going to know more about their marriage than themselves? And I'm like, unfortunately, we can no longer have Selena's point of view, but Chris is still here, and we can still see his point of view. And just the way he still talks about her till this day, he's still very much in love and very respectful of Selena. So I'm like, we're missing that. We're definitely missing that, especially, you know, because, and there are moments when I thought, I'm like, did he have input? And I tried looking it up. I was like, did he have input? Because when Selena's like goes to see Saldivar, you know, you see how she calls him, and I'm like, these are things that like Chris describes in his book. I'm like, so either the director, creator, whatever, they got them from Chris's book, from like, maybe of course after her passing, Chris shared these moments with the family. I was like, well, you know, how this came to be, blah blah blah, was this moment. I'm like, these are things that I read about in the book a little bit differently, and everything. I'm like, these are things that are missing. I'm like, I wish they would have put Chris's point of view, because I'm like, there are certain tender moments, especially like, he's like, I'm very happy with, I guess, my last memory of her, like literally, because like we were like in bed hugging each other. I'm like, that's what's missing from the show. Also, not to mention, I'm like, you could definitely also feel how they're missing in the courthouse. Like, I'm like, you're there, guys, you're sitting in the courthouse and like, and trying to get your marriage license and all this, and trying to do all this. I'm like, and you're missing kind of, at the end of the day, their ultimate thing. I'm like, you guys are doing this because you love each other, and we're missing that emotion. Right now, it just mostly feels like, oh, I just want Chris in my life, which is just a different emotion than I'm in love. If you read Chris's book for the umpteenth time, I'm telling you, I recommend it. I fell in love with Selena. Like, literally reading his book, I'm like, I fell in love with Selena because, again, he is not a writer. I've said this in my first video. I'm like, he is not a writer, but the way that he writes about her, even in his very simple, the way he writes is very simple. Like today I woke up in the morning, blah 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 blah. Like, that's how he writes, and even in that kind of like narrative writing style, it's still, you can feel the love through that. And I'm like, we're missing those moments, especially because there's a moment where like, I guess like they're going through something, and that was another thing. I'm like, even in the show, I'm like, I still don't understand what the heck they were going through. Just like her becoming, her success getting a lot, or what was a real big problem, because like Amy's like, yo, you can't connect to these songs because they're love songs, because something's wrong with you and Chris. Like, what's up? And I'm like, we still don't really know what's up. And the only way we would have gotten that perspective is through Chris, and that's my biggest thing. I'm like, at the end of the day, at this point where the show is leading, we're leading to the point where I'm like, a lot of her moments are with her husband, and we're missing that connection, and we're missing that perspective. And I understand that there was some legal actions that happened with the family and Chris before, but I'm like, I wish you guys could have settled aside your differences and made what's right, not only for Selena's fans, but also for Selena herself, because I know Selena probably wouldn't want that tension and that friction between the two loves of her lives, her family and Chris, which even they themselves, they acknowledge in the show. They're like, you know, Selena loved her family, was a very devout daughter, but she also loved her husband. So that's like, I still my biggest thing. And also, let's just go back to the courthouse. And one thing that just really, I can't get over how much this annoyed me. The fact that this girl was wearing jeggings, I'm like, why couldn't she wear jeans? Like, it really bothered me. I'm like, but why jeggings? Why jeggings? Like, I mean, I wear jeggings, but nonetheless, my jeggings look like jeans. Versus her jeggings look like straight up jeggings. Like, you know, when jeggings first came out, like they were not well qualified. I'm like, why couldn't she just wear jeans? Like, it was okay. I just had to get that out of it because really, if you go back to that scene, it really bothered me. All right, so, all right, now let's talk about what season 2 capitalized and improved upon. They grew Selena as a character. They did! Like, what really annoyed me about the first season was how much they romanticized Selena. Like, we never got to see her angry. We never got to see her upset. We never really got to see her anything. She showed no except happy and hi. And I'm not saying it's not her personality. I do think that a lot of her personality, like, she was definitely like energetic and everything, you know. And I'm not saying that, but I'm like, we are all human. We all get upset. We all get angry. We all get sad. We all get depressed. Reading Chris's book, you know that she was going through like a little bit of a depression mode, dealing with the fame and everything. She was like, oh my gosh, this is getting to me. Like, this is getting a lot. Like, and you read that, like how she was having like little panic attacks. Like, again, in Chris's book, you would know. So, but in the series, we get to see her conflict with Chris, like, you know, about the boutique, about her marriage. You could see like her father and everyone just being like, yo, your outfits aren't as cute. You get to see like her mom be like, yo, I want to have lunch with you, like, you canceled on me. You get to see her sister be like, I wanted to be at the wedding. You get to see all these like interactions with her and her getting upset and her just feeling, and her also, maybe naive and slightly irresponsible at times, especially when it came to opening her boutiques. And, you know, she was like, well, I want to open a boutique and a salon. And they're like, but in the business of it all, it's not a smart decision. And they're trying to explain to her, she was being very stubborn and like, no, but this is what I need and what I want to do. And then even she realized like, yo, it's a lot of work. Like, I wanted to be there to sign. Like, I had to set the bus. And like, her dad's like, yo, this is what I was telling you. Right now you're putting this boutique, but I'm like, don't forget, you also have to balance your career, like everything that's going on. And just you also get to see her conflicting emotions of her breaking into the English music world without her family there, which is something I didn't even know about. So it was really good to see all of that and get to see just those moments and get to know even more details about her life. I'm like, yeah, season 1 we get to know like a lot of details about her life, but it wasn't to my point where, again, I was like, you guys fixated on AB and her dad. You guys didn't really fixate on Selena. And in season 2, they really did fixate on Selena and just her doing her own thing, which I really loved. And you got to see like itty bitty bubbles, which can I just say that Bitty Bitty Bum Bum was my favorite song. It really was. It was also, so I'm like, yo, so let's just talk about that. And also it was really cool to know that I thought that AB also wrote her English songs, but no, it was actually, she got it from other places, like Dreaming of You and I Could Fall in Love were some other people. So I'm like, oh, which again, I had no idea. I thought AB did them. So it was really cool to get more insight on Selena and just get these little details, and also No Me Queda Más. Like I already talked about that. I'm like, that detail, just to kind of be able to see that. So I was really happy with that aspect of the show and just how they showed everything, and again, how we re-centered back into Selena. Now, I don't know, maybe people are going to be like, really, really about this next thing, but I was annoyed about the fact that we didn't get more about the family. And I know some of you guys like, weren't you just upset about that in the first season? But let me explain, because first of all, we get a moment where AB's like in the studio and he's upset, like calling his wife. He's like, you know, my dad doesn't appreciate me. He says it's all about Selena's voice, like yada, yada, yada. And then she's there holding a kid and like another kid screaming for her. And she's like, oh, really? And like, you just tell she's like really pissed off at this moment. She's like, I would not know what that feels like. Tell me more. You can just totally get those vibes. And then he's just like, oh, yeah, my dad's so ungrateful. And I'm like, and that's it. We never see her again. And I'm like, clearly, I'm like, you guys can't just drop that scene, that clip into the show and not further expand on it, because I'm just like, so we're not going to, okay. And then when Ricky, like when we learned about No Me Queda Más, I'm like, that's it? Like, we're not even gonna see Suzette and Ricky really interacting, because literally because that was the main reason why I decided to watch the show again. I was trying to like capture moments between him and Suzette, like even little ones. Like I'm like, oh, like Suzette walking by one day, like as they're like doing mic check, be like, oh, Ricky, you look really nice today, or that sure looks great on you. I love that color, or something. Like I'm like waiting for all these things, and I'm like, but I'm not getting but I'm not getting these things. So, I mean, I don't know what to say at that point. And so that's why I'm like, you can't just drop these like amazing little like droplets of bubbles and all this, but and then just walk away. Which is my, which I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. I'm like, they need this is okay. I know I said I was gonna and then I want to hide it, but this is like my biggest thing about the Selena series. And another thing was I was like, because I was literally at this point I was like, does Christian's acting really bother me? Is it Christian herself or what is it? And I'm literally racking my brain and I'm like, no, because as she's interacting with the family, when she's having her moment, when you hear her laugh, like mimicking Selena's laugh, I'm like, I love it. I love it. I think you're doing great, you know? At the end of the day, do I prefer J-Lo? Yes, I do. Hands down. I do prefer J-Lo, but I didn't mind Christian's performance, but I was like, but there's something about it that bothers me. And I figured it out. Not only is it costume and makeup and hair that pisses me off, it's the filming of Selena, especially when we're filming her last concert, you know? I was like, wait, I there's something wrong here, because I'm like, you're doing the moves, you know, there's certain things, but I'm like, the filming of how it's filmed and the tempo that they decide to film it, because I'm like, she's doing the moves, right? She's doing the, she's doing all of that, and I'm like, and she's doing it well, you know, again, it's not going to be the exact same thing, you know, but I'm like, she's doing it well, but there's something off, and I'm like, I think it's the filming. I think it is. I'm like, there's something about the angles of the camera. And the thing was, I'm like, if you watch the J-Lo movie and how they would film the concert scene specifically, you would see that the style would change. They would mimic the style of what it was during that time, which was the 90s. And I'm like, I don't know why the series didn't do that. I'm like, you guys are modernizing it a little too much. When I'm like, at the end of the day, this is the 80s. The film style was very different. At the end of the day, if we're going to make this a docuseries, because this is a docuseries, you guys should have mimicked that style and mimic how, like, the pans and the angles that you're shooting Christian at to give her a better fighting chance. Because I'm like, at the end of the day, I think right now, the fans are getting upset at Christian, but, like, it's not Christian. It's how it was filmed, and it's very annoying. So I think that's what it is. Also, and because it's something that, like, it's not like we're filming in Kennedy times, you know, like in John F. Kennedy or anything like that. We're filming in a time where there was already cameras, where we have more pictures of Selena and everything than we did, and filming a docuseries about her. So imagine, like, later on, like 20 years from now or whatever, 30 or 40 years from now, when someone decides to play Rihanna. Or when someone decides to play, like, Ariana Grande or Taylor Swift, or decide to, like, do that, I'm like, we're all going to be, like, not only looking at our own memories, but we're also going to be looking at clips that we have of the artists now that are, like, at pictures or Instagram feed, like, everything just popping up. And we're going to be like, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. So I'm like, the only way that they could preserve that, like, those memories and keep true to the time, the era, is to go back and mimic that film style. Especially when you're filming it from such a beloved person in the industry. Like, again, it doesn't have to be every scene, like when she's filming with her family and whatnot and their interaction. I didn't mind it. It was just like those specific, her performances that, again, have been embedded in all of our memories. So I just will say that. Now, here's my biggest fear. My biggest fear in general of the Selena series, that it's not over. Like, I really thought they were really going to, like, you know, stretch, just milk the Selena series. I was like, yo, the first season is probably going to be all about her childhood, all about how her family was, like, you know, not living in the best circumstance, how they pretty much had to live in a bus, like, all that. I was like, I really thought, and, like, we're really going to dive into, like, that. And then the second season would be, like, her breaking into the industry pre-Chris. The third season would be her and Chris in the band, like, sneaking around. And then the fourth season would be them eloping. Like, I really thought that's where the Selena series was going to progress through. But here's my fear, and why I don't think it's over, is because at the end of it, we get to see her brother's band Cumbia Kings, right? And we get to see, like, 1 year later type of, like, see where everyone is 1 year later, except for Chris. I'm just gonna leave that out. And I'm like, I'm terrified that there's gonna be a third season where we're going to see how Suzette, you know, starts to manage Selena's museum, how AB's in Cumbia Kings and starts writing for other artists and all of this, how I guess the aftermath of her mom and her dad and all of that. And I'm like, it's not that I don't want to. It's not that I don't care about these people's feelings. Oh, about how they're gonna film this J-Lo's movie, right? How they do Selena Vive. You know, you guys remember when like all those Latin artists like came and just like sang all her songs. Like I'm like I'm terrified that all of these things are gonna happen. And I'm like, why? And that's the thing. I'm like, it's not necessarily something that's necessary. And again, it's not necessarily that I don't care about their feelings or all of this. It's just, I'm like, you guys are now just capitalizing and just trying to grow no longer the Selena name. You guys trying to grow the Quintanilla family. And I'm just like, and I think you guys are just taking advantage at this point of Selena. If they were to do that. Now, I could be wrong here. Because the reason why I believe that there could be a third season is because also Netflix didn't say that this is the final season of the Selena series. Like, they were like, all right, season 2, final. Like, I mean, you ended on her death. Like and a year after, like, but you still haven't said that this is the end. Please tell me this is the end. Like, just you know, just... And it's not like we can be like, hey, Christian, are you coming back for a third season? Because, I mean, her character died, so it's not like she can come back. So, I don't know, man. I'm like legitimately scared that they might pull that stuff, and I hope they don't. I hope not. I hope that they leave the series as it is, and let us end on a high note. And just let TikTok keep refilming the series. Because literally, as I'm watching, just go back to, like, again, the reason why I decided to watch the series, like, the clip of, like, Suzette, as I watched it in the series, I was like, damn, TikTok, y'all really made that scene more dramatic than it looks in the series, because that's why the filming of it pisses me off, because I'm like, they zoom in on Selena as she starts connecting the dots, like, wait, Ricky's in love with Suzette? And then, like, they film in on Ricky as, like, Suzette puts his hand on him and, like, he's trembling, like, the acting and all that. I'm like, yo. But in this show, they have, like, this panoramic, like, focus that I'm just like, you guys are doing a disservice to the actors right now. Which is, again, goes back to my theory that the filming, that whoever was in charge of the cinematography of this was just... They did not a good job. Alright, guys, thank you so much for watching Resident Evil Girl channel. If there's any other types of, like, videos you want me to do, please leave a comment down below. I promise from now on, I definitely will be trying to post at least twice a week now. Again, going back to, I know I was promising 3 weeks, 3 times, but I'm like, that's not gonna happen. Twice a week will definitely be a new goal. I'm very excited because I do have a couple of ideas. So leave a comment down below if you want to give me more, because I definitely want to break back into YouTube. I do miss filming these types of videos. Alright, guys, thank you so much for watching. Bye!